Morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 182 in the Gospel of John. You mean to tell me there's more? We're literally on the last paragraph of the Gospel of John. John is finishing the Gospel, final thoughts, last page, last paragraph, final truth, and his final argument. One of his big points is the Lord is bigger than we can contain even in this Gospel. Read with me. This is from John 21, verse 24. This is the disciple who is bearing witness about these things. John's referring to himself. And who has written these things, and we know that his testimony is true. Now, there are many other things that Jesus did. Were every one of them to be written, I suppose that the world itself could not contain the books that could be written, that would be written. So now John, the apostle, the disciple, the writer, is finishing his gospel, and he tells us that John has been bearing witness to this bigger God, bigger than all the books could contain. But the structure of this is this tool that he has used, this gospel, has been to bear witness. So he wants to give evidence of this person and the proceedings of the things of Jesus, sort of the person and the actions of Jesus. He's taken the things of Jesus, not of himself, to put forward, to lead you toward a belief that Jesus is the Christ. So writing all these things, but not writing all the things. The first verse, 25, now there are also many other things that Jesus did, and were every one of them written, I suppose that the world itself could not contain the books that would be written. So all the books filling all the world couldn't contain the many other things that Jesus did. Amazing thought. So when I hear that, my first response is curiosity. It's like, well, Lord, what other things do you have? I'm interested. So the things here in this gospel, they end in marveling and awe. And so when the Lord says, yeah, there's more, well, what other marvels and awes are ahead? So I think that is a reality for a world that isn't here and a time that isn't now. So, but for the gospel, if you have considered the claims of Christ, let's just say in the Gospel of John alone, and you found him fantastic, know this, there's more. If you've admired his actions, know this, there's more. If you've wondered about his words, know this, there's more. If you've trusted the truths here, know this, there's more. If you've placed your faith in what you currently have access to, know this, there's more. And if you've enjoyed the Gospel of John, know this, there's more. Well, how much more? Well, we have this picture of how much more. If we stacked up the books of John into my office where I was preparing this, I suppose that 10,000 of those books could fit in my office, and millions if you consider all the rooms of my house alone. And then millions more to the house next door, and millions more in the house next to that, and millions more in the driveway, and more in the backyards, and millions more in the front yards. So millions more in the circles that's down the road. And so probably billions in my neighborhood. Well, what of other neighborhoods, other billions, trillions in my state, beyond comprehension in my country and in my continent? The point here is that we have an eternity to expose and probe and stand before this ongoing revelation of the wonder of God. And you may say, sign me up for that, and I completely agree, and I cannot wait. I want it too. But do you say with John, I've written this, I've written these things to ponder about. So the question is, are you pondering? Do you ponder? So I've exposed these wonders of Jesus, John is saying, these finite wonders of Jesus, and do you wonder about them? I've written these things, these miracles, so that you marvel. I've given you these treasures so that you give these treasures the time they deserve. So how are you doing with this revelation that I've given you? Are you reveling in the revelation? So yes, we can look forward to the mega trillions of books published in heaven about Jesus. Actually, I think it's going to be Jesus himself. But let's honor, respect, and respond to the one book of John, and by extension, the one book of the Bible that we do have. So do you love the Word? Do you love the Bible because of it in and of itself? No. We love the Word because of who the Word reveals, who it contains, so to speak. It's not ultimately about the words, the periods, the stories, and the marvels. It's ultimately about the person of Jesus. So the faithful words of John point to this otherworldly, powerful Jesus, the kind and gentle and patient Jesus, the wounded and suffering Jesus, and the conquering Jesus. All right, so let's get to some action points here. We have spent 7 months on the Gospel of John. Why so long? Some of you say. Others say, why so little? Why did we hurry so much? And I am sad to leave the company of this book and the person that it's described and detailed here. I even got a little weepy about it this morning. And I'm almost ready to go back, circle around, crack open the first page of John, and find Jesus afresh again. But I know this. I know that he's going to have other treasures in other texts that he reveals himself as well. So if your favorite, maybe current book of the Bible isn't John, you have not been paying attention. And John restates at the very end, he says, look, I am a direct witness and I am telling the truth. So he leaves something on our plate, which is, do you believe it? That John was there, that John is telling the truth. So you mean to tell me that with all these books potentially to be printed about Jesus, that there's going to be more? Yes, I do. Much more to come. There's more treasures of Christ to come. So let's be faithful with the treasures that we have from the Gospel of John and the rest of the Bible. So we don't have all the books yet, but we have this one. And John asks the final question, do you believe? Let me end with that. Thanks for listening.